They say a home is made of love, not walls. But I built mine with both, 30 years of love, sacrifice, and unrecognized toil, all for the family I devoted my entire life to. My name is Evelyn. I was 22 when my husband and I bought this empty plot of land. We had no wealth, no inheritance, only a simple dream, to build a safe, permanent home for our future child. While my husband worked overtime at the factory, I took 2 part-time jobs, skipped every meal out, wore worn clothes for years, and handled every single household burden alone. I painted every wall, planted every flower in the yard, fixed every leaky faucet, and paid every monthly bill on time. I sacrificed my youth, my hobbies, and my personal dreams to make this house a home. When my son Lucas was born, I poured every ounce of my heart into raising him. I stayed up through his fevers, celebrated every small victory, forgave every childish mistake, and put his needs above my own, every single day. I believed love was a two-way street. I believed that a lifetime of devotion would earn me warmth, gratitude, and a place to belong in the home I'd created. I was terribly wrong. Now, at 32, Lucas is a successful, independent man with a wife named Mia. He lives comfortably because of the foundation I spent decades building for him. Yet somewhere along the way, gratitude turned to entitlement, and love turned to cold indifference. The betrayal came on a quiet Saturday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, catching the dust above the wooden table where Lucas had eaten every meal of his childhood. I was washing dishes, lost in the gentle routine I'd kept for 30 years, when Lucas and Mia walked in without a greeting, their faces stiff and unyielding. "Mom, we need to talk," Lucas said flatly. There was no kindness in his tone, no softness reserved for the woman who raised him. It was the cold voice of a stranger delivering a final verdict. I dried my hands and smiled, oblivious to the heartbreak coming. "Of course, baby. What is it?" Mia spoke first, sharp and unapologetic. "We're taking over this house. We plan to renovate it, start our official family life here. This place is Lucas's inheritance, and it's time we made it our own." My smile faded, confusion settling in my chest. "This is your home too. I've always wanted you to build your life here. We can renovate together." "You don't understand," Lucas cut me off, cruel and unhesitant. "We want you to move out. This house is too old for you, too big for a single woman. It's time you made space for the next generation." The words knocked the breath straight out of me. I stared at the son I'd sacrificed everything for, struggling to process the betrayal hanging in the air. "Move out? This is my home. I built this house. I worked myself raw for decades to give you this life. I belong here. It's legally mine now," Lucas replied without a flicker of guilt. "Dad signed it over to me before he passed." "You've had your turn, Mom. You have 30 days to pack your things and leave." 30 days. 30 years of sleepless nights, endless sacrifice, and unconditional love reduced to 30 days of packing. After everything I'd given, the child I raised saw me as nothing more than an unwanted guest, taking up space in the life I'd built for him. They did not thank me. They did not comfort me. They did not acknowledge a single tear I'd cried or a single sacrifice I'd made. Mia nodded firmly. "It's for the best. You'll be more comfortable in a small apartment. This house is meant for a young family now." With that, they turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the quiet kitchen, surrounded by memories no one else cherished anymore. For hours, I sat in silence, tears slipping down my cheeks. I grieved not for the house, but for the beautiful lie I'd lived for 30 years, that love and sacrifice would always be rewarded with loyalty. But as the sun set and the room turned dark, my sorrow slowly hardened into quiet, unshakable resolve. I had spent my entire life fighting for everyone else. Now, I would fight for me. That night, I did not cry myself to sleep. I sat alone in the quiet house I'd built from nothing, running my fingers over the scuffed wooden floor where Lucas had learned to walk, the kitchen counter where I'd baked every birthday cake, the walls covered with faded school photos and holiday memories. Every inch of this place held my blood, my sweat, my youth. Yet my own son had reduced it all to disposable real estate. For 30 years, I had lived for others. I adjusted my schedule for Lucas, sacrificed my dreams for his future, swallowed my loneliness to keep our family complete. I had always believed that selfless love would be returned in kindness and gratitude. But Lucas and Mia had proven to me the cruel truth. Some people take your gentleness for weakness, and your sacrifice for obligation. They expected me to crumble. They assumed I would spend my final days obediently packing my life into cardboard boxes, slipping silently out of the home I'd created so they could enjoy the fruits of my labor without a single trace of me left behind. They were wrong. I did not beg for a room in my own house. I did not plead for my son's mercy. I made a quiet, unshakable decision that would rewrite everything. I would not leave. Early the next morning, I dragged out every locked storage box I'd kept hidden in the attic for decades. While Lucas and Mia slept soundly in the guest room they'd claimed as their own, I spread my entire life's proof across the dining table. Original land deed signed by my own hand. long before my husband's name was ever attached to the property. 30 years of mortgage receipts, every payment made from my part-time wages. Old construction invoices, paint and lumber receipts, repair bills, and utility records dating back to the very first year we moved in. Stack after stack of documents that told the real story. This house was never just an inheritance. It was my life's work. My late husband had signed the house over to Lucas in his final illness, thinking he was securing our son's future. He never stopped to ask if Lucas was worthy of the gift. He never knew his own son would use that legal paper to erase the mother who built everything, but legality was not morality. Paper could transfer ownership, but it could never erase 30 years of sacrifice. By 9 in the morning, Lucas and Mia stumbled into the kitchen, yawning and casual, already acting like the masters of my home. Mia glanced at the mountain of documents on the table and frowned, annoyed. "Evelyn, what is all this clutter? We told you to start packing. We want to begin renovations next week." Lucas crossed his arms, his tone cold and authoritative. "Mom, don't make this difficult. You agreed to move out. A deal is a deal." I lifted my head, no trace of tears or sorrow in my eyes. For the first time in 30 years, I was not a nurturing mother bending to her child's will. I was a woman defending her worth. "I never agreed to anything," I said steadily. "You gave me an ultimatum. But I'm not leaving." Lucas's face hardened with disbelief and anger. "You're being unreasonable. This house is mine legally. You have no right to stay here." "You have a legal title," I corrected him calmly, sliding the original land deed across the table toward him. "But you have no right. You were a child while I worked 2 jobs to build this place. You never paid a bill, fixed a repair, or sacrificed a single thing for this home. You only took and received." Mia scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Sacrifice is the job of parents. It's your duty. Now it's time for you to step aside." Her words cut sharp, but they no longer hurt me. They only woke me up completely. "Duty is mutual," I replied firmly. "I did my duty for 30 years. Now you will do yours, show me respect, or face the consequences." Lucas laughed bitterly, arrogant and overconfident. "Consequences? What are you going to do, Mom? Sue your own son? You'll look ridiculous. No judge will side with you." I smiled faintly, a quiet, resolute smile they had never seen on my face before. "I'm not going to sue you," I said. "I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to expose every part of how you betrayed the mother who gave you everything. And I'm going to prove that a house built on ingratitude and betrayal will never truly belong to you." Their confident expressions faltered for the first time. They thought I was weak, old, and helpless. They thought I would bow down to their entitlement, but they were about to learn the hardest lesson of their lives. You can take a person's house, their money, and their legacy on paper, but you can never take their self-respect, and I was finally ready to stand for myself. That night, I did not cry myself to sleep. I sat alone in the quiet house I'd built from nothing, running my fingers over the scuffed wooden floor where Lucas had learned to walk, the kitchen counter where I'd baked every birthday cake, the walls covered with faded school photos and holiday memories. Every inch of this place held my blood, my sweat, my youth, yet my own son had reduced it all to disposable real estate. For 30 years, I had lived for others. I adjusted my schedule for Lucas, sacrificed my dreams for his future, swallowed my loneliness to keep our family complete. I had always believed that selfless love would be returned in kindness and gratitude. But Lucas and Mia had proven to me the cruel truth. Some people take your gentleness for weakness, and your sacrifice for obligation. They expected me to crumble. They assumed I would spend my final days obediently packing my life into cardboard boxes, slipping silently out of the home I'd created so they could enjoy the fruits of my labor without a single trace of me left behind. They were wrong. I did not beg for a room in my own house. I did not plead for my son's mercy. I made a quiet, unshakable decision that would rewrite everything. I would not leave. Early the next morning, I dragged out every locked storage box I'd kept hidden in the attic for decades. While Lucas and Mia slept soundly in the guest room they'd claimed as their own, I spread my entire life's proof across the dining table. Original land deed signed by my own hand, long before my husband's name was ever attached to the property. 30 years of mortgage receipts, every payment made from my part-time wages. Old construction invoices, paint and lumber receipts, repair bills, and utility records dating back to the very first year we moved in. Stack after stack of documents that told the real story. This house was never just an inheritance. It was my life's work. My late husband had signed the house over to Lucas in his final illness, thinking he was securing our son's future. He never stopped to ask if Lucas was worthy of the gift. He never knew his own son would use that legal paper to erase the mother who built everything, but legality was not morality. Paper could transfer ownership, but it could never erase 30 years of sacrifice. By 9 in the morning, Lucas and Mia stumbled into the kitchen, yawning and casual, already acting like the masters of my home. Mia glanced at the mountain of documents on the table and frowned, annoyed. Evelyn, what is all this clutter? We told you to start packing. We want to begin renovations next week. Lucas crossed his arms, his tone cold and authoritative. Mom, don't make this difficult. You agreed to move out. A deal is a deal. I lifted my head, no trace of tears or sorrow in my eyes. For the first time in 30 years, I was not a nurturing mother bending to her child's will. I was a woman defending her worth. I never agreed to anything, I said steadily. You gave me an ultimatum. But I'm not leaving. Lucas's face hardened with disbelief and anger. You're being unreasonable. This house is mine legally. You have no right to stay here. You have a legal title, I corrected him calmly, sliding the original land deed across the table toward him. But you have no right. You were a child while I worked 2 jobs to build this place. You never paid a bill, fixed a repair, or sacrificed a single thing for this home. You only took and received. Mia scoffed, rolling her eyes. Sacrifice is the job of parents. It's your duty. Now it's time for you to step aside. Her words cut sharp, but they no longer hurt me. They only woke me up completely. Duty is mutual, I replied firmly. I did my duty for 30 years. Now you will do yours, show me respect, or face the consequences. Lucas laughed bitterly, arrogant and overconfident. Consequences? What are you going to do, Mom? Sue your own son? You'll look ridiculous. No judge will side with you. I smiled faintly, a quiet, resolute smile they had never seen on my face before. I'm not going to sue you, I said. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to expose every part of how you betrayed the mother who gave you everything. And I'm going to prove that a house built on ingratitude and betrayal will never truly belong to you. Their confident expressions faltered for the first time. They thought I was weak, old, and helpless. They thought I would bow down to their entitlement, but they were about to learn the hardest lesson of their lives. You can take a person's house, their money, and their legacy on paper, but you can never take their self-respect, and I was finally ready to stand for myself. The arrogance drained from Lucas and Mia's faces in an instant. For weeks, they had treated me like a fragile, outdated burden, too gentle, too forgiving, too accustomed to staying quiet for the sake of family harmony. They'd grown comfortable in their entitlement, convinced my decades of softness meant I would never dare fight back. Never dare tarnish their perfect reputation as a loving young couple building their dream life, but my quiet resolve terrified them and Mia was the first to snap. Her polished composure crumbling into sharp, frantic irritation. She stepped forward and slammed her palm flat against the stack of my documents, as if brute force could erase the truth printed on every page. This is absurd. She hissed. You're being petty and bitter over nothing. We're trying to improve this house, to build a proper future for our family. You're just jealous that you're getting older and have nothing left but old memories. I have everything left, I replied calmly, my voice steady and unshaken. I have dignity. Something the two of you clearly lack. Lucas grabbed Mia's arm, pulling her back, but his eyes were wide and anxious, no longer filled with arrogance. He knew I was not bluffing. He knew the small-town community we lived in valued loyalty, gratitude, and family above material wealth. A mother wrongfully evicted from the home she'd built with her own hands would turn every neighbor, every friend, every family acquaintance against him. His pristine image of a devoted, successful son would shatter overnight. Mom, calm down, he said quickly, his tone shifting from cold authority to forced patience. A desperate attempt to manipulate me into backing down. You're overreacting. We never meant to hurt you. We just thought it'd be better for everyone if you downsized and enjoyed a simpler life. This house is too much maintenance for you now. I stared at him, unmoved by his fake concern. I saw right through his hollow apology, another tactic to make me feel unreasonable. To guilt me into surrendering my home and my self-respect. You didn't care about my workload when you grew up here, I said plainly. You never lifted a finger to maintain this house. You only enjoyed the comfort I spent every single day building for you. Don't pretend this is for my benefit. This is for your greed. You want a renovated, perfect house without earning a single inch of it. Mia's face flushed with rage. You're twisting our kindness. Lucas worked hard to build his career. He deserves this house. He deserves the life I gave him, I corrected her firmly. Not the right to kick me out of the home that made his success possible. Every stable childhood memory, every safe night, every opportunity he ever had started right here, in the house I built alone. Lucas's jaw tightened, and his mask finally slipped. The grateful son act was gone, replaced by raw, selfish frustration. What do you want from me, Mom? He snapped. Do you want me to thank you forever? Is that what this is? You parented me, that's your job. You don't get to hold my entire life hostage for basic maternal duties. The words stung, but they no longer broke me. They freed me. I finally understood that some children do not grow out of selfishness. They grow into it. They take every sacrifice for granted and treat every act of love as an obligation they are owed. I gathered my documents slowly, stacking them neatly, my hands steady and confident. I watched panic creep further into their eyes with every move I made. I don't want your endless thanks, I said softly yet firmly. I only want respect. I only want to stay in the home I built. I only want the family I spent 30 years nurturing to treat me like a human being, not a disposable housekeeper. I paused, letting my words sink in. Before delivering the final blow to their perfect little plan, you have 24 hours to reconsider your decision. If you still insist on evicting me, I will submit every document, every receipt, every witness statement, and every detail of your betrayal to the community board, our neighborhood association, and our family's closest relatives. Everyone will know exactly how you repaid a lifetime of sacrifice. Mia paled instantly. You wouldn't dare. I dare, I said without hesitation. I've spent 30 years daring to sacrifice for you. Now I dare to stand for myself. Lucas stared at me in stunned silence, realization crashing over him wave after wave. He had never seen me brave, never seen me unyielding, never seen me choose myself over his happiness. He had always thought my love was endless and unconditional, that no matter how cruel he was, I would always forgive him, always bend for him, always let him win. He was wrong, the quiet mother who tolerated every slight, every act of ingratitude. Every selfish choice was gone. In her place stood a woman who finally knew her own worth, and I was ready to watch their perfect, entitled world fall apart if they refused to give me the respect I had spent a lifetime earning. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Lucas and Mia stared at the towering stack of documents on the table, and the cocky certainty they'd carried just minutes ago dissolved into unmasked panic. They'd walked in ready to rewrite my home, erase my memories, and push me into quiet invisibility. They'd never once considered I would fight back. Not with tears, not with guilt, but with undeniable, unshakable proof. Mia was the first to crack. Her polished composure shattered completely, her earlier arrogance melting into frantic desperation. She stepped forward quickly, shoving the papers aside like they were burning her skin, her voice sharp and shaky. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting to a simple living arrangement change. Do you really want to drag your own family into court and embarrass everyone in town over a house? You'll look bitter and petty. I tilted my head, my tone calm and unrushed, every word cutting through her frantic manipulation. I will look like a mother who refused to be discarded after 30 years of sacrifice. You will look like the greedy couple who evicted the woman who built everything you own. People will know the truth, Mia. They will know who is truly petty and ungrateful. Her face flushed bright red, frustration and fear warring in her eyes. She had always prided herself on being the charming, reasonable daughter-in-law in the neighborhood. A public scandal would destroy the pristine image she'd spent years building. Lucas's shoulders slumped, his tough exterior crumbling away. He ran a hand through his hair, his earlier anger replaced by pure anxiety. He knew exactly what I was capable of. He knew our small town thrived on family reputation, and a son evicting his lifelong sacrificing mother was the kind of scandal that would ruin his career, his social standing, and every connection he'd built. Mom. Stop this, he pleaded, his voice softer, weaker, stripped of all authority. Let's talk this through like family. There's no need for court or drama. You're taking this way too far. I looked at him, my heart no longer aching, no longer clinging to the hope of his gratitude. I saw him clearly now, a grown man spoiled by my lifelong devotion, entitled to my hard work, and terrified to face the consequences of his own cruelty. I tried family, I said quietly. I spent 30 years being family. I compromised, I sacrificed, I stayed quiet, and I let you take and take and take. You responded by giving me 30 days to leave the home I built. You started this. I'm just finishing it. Lucas flinched at my words, a flicker of genuine guilt finally breaking through his selfishness. I didn't mean it like that. We just thought it would be better for everyone. We didn't want to hurt you. You didn't care if you hurt me, I corrected him firmly. You only cared about your new renovation, your perfect house, your convenient life. My feelings, my memories, my dignity, none of it mattered to you until I stopped letting you walk all over me. Mia crossed her arms tightly, her tone turning defensive and bitter. We were only trying to move forward with our lives. You can't expect us to put our future on hold forever just because you're attached to some old walls. These walls are my life, I shot back. You get to have a future because I spent my entire youth building your foundation. You want the reward without the respect. You want the home without honoring the person who built it. The two of them exchanged a terrified, helpless glance. They'd come ready to bully a grieving, aging mother into submission, but they'd walked straight into their own downfall. Every threat they'd made, every cruel word they'd spoken, every entitled demand they'd pushed was now backfiring spectacularly. Lucas swallowed hard, his pride crumbling completely. He'd never begged me for anything in his adult life, but desperation dripped from every word now. What do you want me to do, Mom? What will make you drop this? I stood tall, staring at the sun I'd raised, and spoke the simple truth they'd refused to hear all along. I want you to apologize. Not a quick, forced apology to fix this mess. A real apology for forgetting every sacrifice I made. I want you to cancel the renovations. I want you to stop treating me like a guest in my own home. I want you to finally give me the respect I have spent 30 years earning. Mia's mouth fell open in shock. You can't be serious. I am completely serious, I cut her off sharply. This is my only condition. Accept it, or we go to court. Let everyone in this town watch as you fight to evict the mother who gave you everything. Silence fell again. Heavy and final, Lucas stared at the stack of proof on the table, at my unyielding expression. And finally realized the truth he'd spent years ignoring. He could own the house on paper. But he could never own it over my dignity, and for the first time since he was a child, my selfish, entitled son had no choice but to surrender. Defeat settled over Lucas and Mia like a heavy blanket. There was no loophole left, no clever argument, no way to spin their cruelty into a minor misunderstanding. Faced with my unbroken resolve and irrefutable proof, their arrogant defiance crumbled into quiet, bitter surrender. They'd come to steal my home, my memories, my place in the family I'd built, and now they had nowhere to run. Mia huffed loudly, turning away with eyes glistening with frustrated tears. She had no more sharp words, no more lectures about maturity or moving forward. Her perfect, righteous act was fully exposed. She was just a greedy daughter-in-law who'd wanted to erase an old woman's life to satisfy her own vanity. Lucas stood frozen for a long moment, his shoulders slumping in pure shame. He glanced at the photos lining the walls, his childhood graduation portraits, baby pictures I'd carefully framed, holiday snapshots of us laughing together, and the weight of his betrayal finally crashed over him. He'd grown up sheltered in my sacrifice, spoiled by my endless grace, and blinded by his own success. He'd mistaken my kindness for weakness, my devotion for obligation, and my home for his rightful prize. I'm sorry, he mumbled at last. His voice small and hoarse, stripped of all pride. It was not the rushed, defensive apology he'd tried to offer earlier. This one was shaky, genuine, rooted in guilt and fear and the quiet realization of how horribly he'd wronged me. I was wrong, Mom, he continued, staring at his feet. I got greedy. I forgot everything you did for me. I had no right to push you out of the home you built. I'll cancel the renovations today. You belong here. This will always be your house. My chest tightened, but not with sorrow. For 30 years, I'd waited to hear him acknowledge my sacrifice. I'd spent countless quiet nights hoping he would see how much I'd given up for him. Yet now that the words were finally here, I felt no overwhelming joy, only calm, quiet relief. I did not forgive him instantly. Forgiveness takes time, and betrayal leaves scars. But I accepted his apology, not for his sake, but for mine. I was no longer fighting to win his love. I was fighting to honor myself. Mia refused to speak, her face stony and defeated. She dreamed of remodeling every room, of posting glossy social media photos of her perfect dream home, of rewriting this house's story to center only her. Now she was forced to stand in the shadow of the truth. This home was not hers to claim. By noon that day, Lucas called the contractors and canceled the renovation plans entirely. He deleted every blueprint, every design list, every selfish plan they'd made to erase my life's work. The threat of eviction was gone, the cold ultimatum of 30 days vanished into thin air, but I did not return to the old me. I did not go back to being the quiet, sacrificing mother who put everyone above herself. I kept my documents stored safely away, kept my resolve firm, and set clear, unshakable boundaries in my own home. From that day on, Lucas and Mia treated me with quiet, unwavering respect. They no longer spoke over me, no longer dismissed my feelings, no longer acted like my presence was a burden. They learned to cherish the home I'd built, to honor the decades of sacrifice that gave them their comfortable life. Watching them change, I understood the greatest lesson of all: self-worth is not given by family. It is earned by yourself. I had spent my whole life waiting for others to value me. I finally valued myself. I did not lose my home that day. I gained it back. Not just the walls, the floors, or the memories, but the right to belong exactly where I'd always been. It is never too late to stand up for yourself. Even to your own family. Even after a lifetime of sacrifice. Many people thought the conflict ended the day Lucas canceled the renovations. They believed the apology, the surrendered pride, and the abandoned eviction plan were the true happy ending. But I knew better. A family wound fixed on the surface without healing the root is destined to break again. True peace did not come from their submission, it came from my freedom. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere in the house shifted completely. Gone were the entitled demands, the dismissive glances, and the quiet assumption that I would bend to their every want. Lucas and Mia walked on eggshells at first, cautious and guilty, clearly trying to make amends for their cruelty. They helped with housework, asked for my opinions on small household matters. And even hung new family photos that included me front and center. They tried to restore the warm, obedient family dynamic they'd always known. They expected me to soften, to go back to the selfless, forgiving mother who prioritized their happiness above all else, but I did not doubt I was kinder, but I was no longer compliant. I was gentle, but I was no longer self-sacrificing. For 30 years, my schedule revolved around their needs. My hobbies waited for spare time that never came. And my dreams were always placed on the back burner now. I began to live for me. I dug out the old art supplies I'd abandoned in my 20s. The ones I'd set aside after Lucas was born to focus solely on motherhood. I painted the quiet sunsets over my backyard, the flower beds I'd planted decades ago, and the worn wooden porch that had witnessed every chapter of my life. I joined the neighborhood women's hiking group, met new friends, and spent weekends exploring small towns I'd never had time to visit, for the first time in my adult life. I put my joy first. Lucas and Mia were stunned by the change that they'd anticipated, a grateful, softened mother clinging tighter to her family after the near loss. Instead, they watched me bloom independently, steady and happy without relying on their validation. At first, confusion settled over them. Then came a quiet, humbling understanding. They had never truly known me. They only knew the version of me that existed to serve them. One evening, as we sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Lucas broke the long silence. His voice sincere and unguarded. "I never realized how much of yourself you lost for me," he said quietly. "I thought you loved being here just for us. I never stopped to ask what you wanted for yourself." I turned to look at him. No resentment, no lingering sorrow, only peace. "That's not your fault alone," I answered gently. "I chose to give everything for my family. But I've learned love should not mean erasing yourself. You finally see me now, not just as your mother, but as a person with my own life." Many assume healing arrives in a single sunset, one heartfelt apology, or one quiet truce. But true healing is lived, not just resolved. It unfolds slowly, in the small, ordinary moments that rewrite years of hurt and imbalance. Months turned into seasons. And the house I built stopped being a place of buried sacrifice and unspoken resentment. It softened into something warmer, fairer, and far more peaceful than it had ever been before. Lucas and Mia's change was no longer performative or guilt-driven. It became habitual, quiet, and sincere. They no longer woke up expecting a warm meal waiting on the table or a spotless house handed to them without effort. On weekends, I'd walk out to find Lucas sweeping the porch I'd tended alone for decades, or Mia tidying the kitchen without being asked. They no longer rushed to redesign my home. Instead, they learned to honor every mark, every scratch, every aged wall that held my story. They stopped seeing me as a housekeeper, a caregiver, or a background character in their perfect life. They saw me as the woman who laid every foundation they stood upon. One crisp autumn morning, I came downstairs to find them rearranging the living room wall, not to remove my old photos, but to add them front and center. My childhood portraits, my old college art sketches, and even the faded photo of me standing on the empty land before the house was built now hung proudly beside their modern family snapshots. "We wanted everyone to see who made this home possible," Lucas said softly, catching my gaze. "Not just us. You." My heart lightened, not with relief alone, but with quiet pride. I never wanted their worship. I only wanted their awareness, the simple, human respect I'd spent 30 years overlooking in my pursuit of keeping the family whole. That weekend, I hosted a small neighborhood gathering. For the first time in my life, I did not spend the entire day cooking, cleaning, and serving others. I painted while guests arrived, chatted with my new friends, and let Lucas and Mia handle the hosting duties. They did not complain. They did not expect me to step in. They simply served, grateful and present. Several neighbors pulled me aside, commenting on how peaceful our home felt now, how balanced and genuine our family dynamic had become. "It's like you finally breathe here," one old friend said. She was right. I was finally breathing. Mia found me later that afternoon, standing alone on the porch, watching the golden leaves drift across the yard I'd planted. She hesitated for a moment before speaking, her tone gentle and unguarded. "I used to think growing up meant taking what you're owed," she admitted. "I thought your hard work was just what mothers do. I didn't understand how much you gave up until you stopped giving everything." I turned to her with a calm smile. "It's never too late to learn kindness." She nodded, her eyes clear and sincere. "We're so lucky you fought for yourself. If you hadn't, we would have spent our whole lives blind to how blessed we were. That was the greatest victory of all, not that I kept my house, but that my family grew. They matured, unlearned their entitlement, and chose respect over convenience, gratitude over greed. Still, I never returned to the old version of me. I kept my boundaries firm. I kept my hobbies, my outings, my quiet weekends to myself. I continued painting, traveling small towns, and nurturing my own happiness without guilt. Lucas learned to celebrate my joy instead of requiring my service. He learned that a mother's love is not an endless resource to be drained, but a precious gift to be cherished and reciprocated. I once believed my purpose was to build a home for my family. Now I know the truest purpose of life is to build yourself. Even after decades of putting others first, this house still stands, steady and warm, filled with old memories and new, healthier love. But it is no longer the only place I belong. I belong to me, and no one, no family, no child, no lifetime of sacrifice, can ever take that away again. Time moves differently when you stop living for others and start living for yourself. The sharp ache of betrayal had long faded, replaced by a soft, steady peace I had never known in 30 years of motherhood and sacrifice. The house I built no longer felt like a battlefield of unappreciated efforts or a prison of endless duty. It was simply home, warm, balanced, and mine first and foremost. Winter came quietly to our small town, dusting the yard I'd planted decades ago with soft snow, blanketing the porch where I'd cried lonely nights and celebrated small joys. The seasons changed, but the new rhythm of our family remained steady and unshaken. Lucas and Mia's respect was no longer a temporary correction born from guilt or fear. It had rooted deep, becoming their natural way of loving and treating me. They no longer waited for me to rise early to prepare breakfast, no longer left dirty dishes and messy rooms for me to clean up without a word. Each morning, I woke up not to a list of unspoken obligations, but to freedom. Some days I slept in late. Some days I spent hours painting by the bay window, my brushes swirling color across canvas. No rush, no interruption, no guilt hanging over my head. Lucas had taken over most of the household maintenance. He fixed the old creaky porch floor I'd endured for years, trimmed the overgrown garden hedges I'd once tended alone, and checked the furnace and pipes before the cold weather hit. He never boasted about it, never expected praise. He simply did it, silently making up for years of taking my hard work for granted. Mia, once so obsessed with luxury renovations and perfect social media appearances, stopped chasing empty vanity. She began tending to my flower beds in the mild winter sunlight, learning the names of every bloom I'd nurtured, asking me stories about the years I'd planted each one. She no longer saw the home's age as a flaw to erase, but as a legacy to protect. I used to think new walls and modern decor would make a perfect home, she told me one quiet afternoon as we sipped hot tea by the fireplace. But perfect homes aren't made of new paint. They're made of years of love, effort, and memories we get to honor. I finally see that now. I smiled, watching the fire flicker gently, warming the room that had once held only my silent exhaustion. Growth is not about being perfect. It's about being better than you were yesterday. That holiday season was the most peaceful one we had ever shared. For the first time in my life, I did not spend days baking endless batches of cookies, decorating every corner of the house, and preparing elaborate meals for everyone while exhausting myself. Instead, we split every task evenly. Lucas cooked the main feast, Mia handled the decorations and table settings. And I simply enjoyed the moment. Sitting back and watching my family work together out of genuine love and gratitude. Our relatives and neighbors who joined us for dinner that night commented repeatedly on how calm and joyful our home felt. They could sense the shift. The heavy weight of one-sided sacrifice was gone, replaced by equal care and mutual respect. After dinner, when the guests had left, Lucas pulled me aside beneath the twinkling living room lights. His voice was soft and sincere, no longer shaky with guilt or desperation, just honest reflection. I look back at how I treated you, and I'm still ashamed, he said quietly. I can't take back the day I asked you to leave your own home. But I can spend every day after that making sure you never feel unworthy, unwanted, or unappreciated again. You deserve the world, Mom. You always have. I touched his arm gently, my heart full but no longer fragile. I did not need his endless apologies or grand gestures. I only needed his consistent respect, and that was exactly what he gave me. I'm proud of the man you've become, I told him truthfully. Not the successful, wealthy son with a perfect house. The kind, grateful son who finally learned to cherish his mother. In the months that followed, I continued to build my own beautiful life outside of motherhood and household duties. I sold a handful of my paintings at a local small-town art fair, made close, lifelong friends who shared my love of quiet beauty and slow living, and took short weekend trips to coastal towns I'd only ever dreamed of visiting in my younger years. I learned to spoil myself. The way I'd spent decades spoiling everyone else. People often ask me if I regret standing up to my only son, if I regret the brief conflict that shook our family to its core. The answer is never hesitation, never doubt, only certainty. I do not regret it for a single second. Sometimes, the greatest love story you will ever live is the love you finally give to yourself. Sometimes, saving your family means first saving you. My bravery did not break our family, it mended it. Stronger and healthier than any forced harmony ever could. The house still stands. Every brick and wall a testament to my hard work, my resilience, and my endless love. But I no longer define myself by the home I built for others. I define myself by the brave, worthy, joyful woman I chose to become. I once thought belonging meant staying quiet, sacrificing more, and loving harder. Now I know belonging starts with honoring yourself. I have my home. I have my family's respect. Most of all, I have me, and that is the happiest, most unshakable ending a lifetime of love and courage could ever earn. Spring returned, soft and bright, washing the winter snow from my yard and breathing new life into every corner of the home I built. If someone stepped into my house now, they would never guess it once held bitter betrayal, quiet tears, and a mother's broken heart. The tension that once lingered in the hallways was gone entirely. In its place lived easy laughter, mutual care, and a kind of balance most families spend a lifetime chasing and never find. Lucas and Mia's transformation was no longer a recent change, it had become their nature. They stopped viewing this house as an asset, an inheritance, or a status symbol. They began treating it like what it truly was, a living archive of resilience, patience, and a mother's boundless devotion. Every scratch on the floor from Lucas's childhood toys, every faded stain on the kitchen counter from old birthday batter, every tree I'd planted and watched grow tall, they honored it all. Mia started a small tradition every spring. She helped me replant the flower beds, and for every new bloom we set into the soil, she asked me to tell her a story from the year I first planted that section of the yard. She wanted to know the young version of me, the girl who worked 2 jobs, who dreamed of art and travel, who sacrificed so much so her future family would never lack stability. I used to only see the present, she admitted to me one warm morning, dirt on her hands and sunlight in her hair. Now I see the past in every corner. This house didn't just raise Lucas. It saved him. I nodded, my heart light and full. It saved me too, in the end. Lucas, meanwhile, quietly began putting my name back into the home's story in ways that mattered far more than legal paperwork. He commissioned a small, custom wooden plaque and hung it right beside the front door, where every guest would see it the moment they stepped inside. Carved neatly into the wood were simple words, built by Evelyn's hands, held by Evelyn's heart. When I first saw it, my breath caught. It was not a grand gesture, but it meant more than any expensive renovation ever could. It was public, unashamed recognition. It was him finally giving me the credit I'd spent 30 years earning. The law can say what it wants about ownership, Lucas said softly, standing beside me as we stared at the plaque. But everyone who walks in here deserves to know the truth. This home is yours. It always has been. That day, I realized true reconciliation is not about forgetting the pain. It is about growing past it, choosing better, and rewriting the future with intentional kindness. As the months unfolded, our family dynamic continued to flourish in ways I'd never imagined possible. Lucas and Mia no longer relied on me emotionally or physically to hold their lives together. They became a stable, thoughtful, grateful couple because they learned to observe and respect the strength I'd hidden for decades beneath my quiet, nurturing exterior. They stopped taking gentle hearts for weak ones, stopped mistaking sacrifice for obligation, stopped equating age with irrelevance. Watching them mature, I understood why I'd needed to fight back that day. If I had crumbled, if I had packed my bags and left quietly, if I had chosen peace over self-respect, Lucas would have grown old believing gratitude was optional. He would have carried that entitlement into his future relationships, never learning the weight of a mother's love, never understanding the dignity of those who serve in silence. My stand was never just for me. It was for him too. Still, I never returned to the selfless woman I once was. I traveled more, painted more, laughed more, and prioritized my peace without guilt. I hosted small art gatherings in my living room, turning the house I built into a place of community and joy for others, not just a shelter for my family. Young women from town began coming to me for advice, women stuck in one-sided relationships, people who spent their lives sacrificing for others and losing themselves in the process. I told them the same truth I'd had to learn the hard way: you do not have to disappear to keep your family intact. You do not have to shrink to keep the peace. Love does not require erasure. One evening, as Lucas, Mia, and I sat together on the porch watching the spring sunset paint the sky pink and gold, Mia turned to me with a soft, certain smile. Someday, if we have children, she said, we're going to tell them this story. We're going to tell them how their grandmother built this home with everything she had. We'll tell them how brave she was, how she chose herself and healed our family in the process. We'll teach them gratitude before they ever learn privilege. Tears pricked my eyes, not sad tears, but grateful ones. I had once feared my betrayal would define our family forever. Instead, my courage became our legacy. The house I built with my hands will age one day. Its walls will fade, its floors will wear, its structure will eventually need renewal. But the lessons I planted here, respect, gratitude, self-worth, and the bravery to stand for yourself, will outlive every brick and beam. I came into this story believing I needed a home to belong. I leave knowing I was always the home.